Hello, everyone, and welcome to another year of the Pilates 101 podcast. As you know, my name is Glenn Withers, and I'm one of your hosts here, and I'm joined by our co-host for 2025, Kristina Holding. Kristina, welcome to the new
Hi,
year.
everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. How was it? How was the Christmas New Year break for you and family?
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Everyone decided to be ill on perfect rotation. So I didn't have to do with everybody all in one go. I managed to just have one quarantine room, which got trays delivered. And then it's a steady stream of 20 other people rotating through the house. But it was really lovely. Thank you so much. What about yourself? Good one?
Yeah, it was actually. I've said this to a few people that have asked this question. We had one of those, well, Christmas Day, shall we say, we had one of those times this year where everyone was actually on good form. When you've got 5 kids, it invariably, as you touched on, invariably someone's ill or stressed or sick
Grumpy.
or
Just
just
grumpy.
grumpy. But no, it was actually really, really nice. We did the presents in the morning, off to church, and then back for a proper Christmas lunch with everyone sat at the table having
Oh,
nice time, which actually I think is possibly the first time for us. Yeah, that
oh
we
my God.
just had it all together. It was actually really, really pleasant. And then between Christmas and New Year, it's fun and games, and then I think the last few days become a little bit of survival mode until the kids get back to school. It's a point. Whereas, like, okay, everyone needs to go now. Everyone needs to get back
Yeah.
to their
it's
routines.
I think it's a very fine line between wanting to throw them out the door and also being really sad it's over and then wanting to have them for more time and then inevitably on like the January as it was the overwhelming urge to get them out the door was insane.
Yes, yes. Well, let's talk this year. At the start of each year, I often do the new and emerging trends for the year. We'll probably do that in the next episode. This year, we're recording this a little bit before that's come out. So let's talk about the year for you. Let's keep it on a professional level, shall we? In terms of what your sort of view hopes are in relation to Pilates and the industry and what it looks like for this year from your point of view.
Well, there is nothing non-professional to discuss. My life outside will be looking pretty similar, which is good though. Professionally, I mean, you guys have heard me say before, the role here at APPI, the International Relations Management, I'm loving it. Anyone who's come into contact with me has probably heard me talk about how excited I am, and this is, the first full year I've got to work with. So I'm on a professional level there, just very excited to see where it can go. Plans are in place. Little nudge, wink, wink. Got some new contracts in the pipeline, which we are super excited to tell you about soon. Everybody, obviously Glenn does know, but the listeners might be excited to hear. I'm teaching the dynamic reformer for the first time coming up in a couple of weeks, which I am ridiculously excited about. We've got it online, so it's already available for anyone to purchase now. But we've got our face-to-face dates in, and yes, first one's in a couple of weeks. So I've been on the reformer, just practicing some of those classes, the exercises, the flows. I am really, really excited about that. We've also got some new dates coming in some of our courses. So we've got new research. One of the things I love, as you know, Glenn, about the APPI is we're always keeping up to date. We're not just providing this product and that's it for the next, few decades. It's constantly being refreshed and revived. Tracy's done an amazing job on it. So I'm really excited to see those changes coming into courses, both face to face and online. I think people are really going to benefit from it, both on a personal level and also as instructors. Sort of traveling for me this year. Got a couple of gone to Malaysia and Austria to deliver some courses out there. So really excited about that. Also, little break from the children, which will be nice. But also just meeting new people, networking and getting out there. So professionally for me this year, it's one of excitement. I think that's the only word I can probably use then is just, excitement. That's me personally.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well, look, I think if I reflect on 2024 and portray forward to 2025, for those of you who listened to the January podcast, we spoke about this boom in the Pilates industry, and specifically around reformer group exercise classes, and reformer studios as well. And back a year ago, 12 months ago, we were talking about it hasn't hit in the UK yet. We're predicting it that it will hit, but it hasn't really hit. I think that's what the sort of feel of the industry is probably now. I think 2025 is going to be a really big year for the Pilates reformer concept. You know, I'm super excited about the dynamic reformer, as you said, and the cardio reformer and all the other stuff we're doing. But I think for those people listening and thinking about the year ahead themselves, I think that's probably sort of the biggest thing that I think is, I think we're really going to see that boom that you know, hit in the States quite a while ago. It was in Australia sort of 3-4 years ago, is now all over the place. And we're just seeing that influx into gyms. The reformer manufacturers are probably very happy right now, because there's
I can imagine so, yeah.
Seeing that influx into the gym environment. And I think that's going to provide these amazing opportunities, but also challenges in our industry. I think is going to be, for us as education providers, I think the biggest challenge is going to be ensuring that there are well-trained, respected teachers out there, because I think there might be some shortcuts being taken. I don't know. I'm just, you know, just my opinion, but there might be some shortcuts there. I must say, I will share this. I was appalled, absolutely appalled. Those listening, you can take it. I am saying absolutely appalled by an article I read in the Health Education magazine, where Howard, I think his name is, from Gym Kit, said that you don't need to be trained on the reformer to teach on the reformer anymore. You just need the machines in. You don't need training. You can just go and teach on the machines. And so, if anyone's listening, that's my opinion. I'll put it right out there. Howard, I am appalled by your lack of insight, by your lack of education, by your lack of awareness into actually the importance of proper training, if nothing else, to keep people safe on the machine. So I certainly hope there are no ramifications for people out there that have taken that word and have gone out there and are trying to deliver something they're not qualified to do. I was aghast when I read that. I know the guys at Align Pilates, who we partner with, were very, are very focused on having people trained properly on their machines, and wanting to ensure that's the case. So I think it's going to be an interesting year. Got to be honest, Kristina. I think there's going to be a boom. I think there's going to be ups and downs. I think there's going to be controversy. I think it's just going to be an interesting ride this year, for sure. I'm excited by it, like you. I think it's going to be a good year, but I think there's going to be many opportunities, and on the other side of that, some challenges. So I think we've said it the whole way along in terms of maintaining your sort of standards and your belief in your standards. I think that's what our message to all of those listening out there to the Pilates 101 podcast would be, is that don't get sucked into too many things, people trying to take shortcuts. It will go full circle, I'm sure of it. And I think it will be a really positive move that more and more people will be exposed to Pilates, and the more people that are exposed to Pilates will start to find well-trained teachers and will recognize the difference. So stay true to yourselves, those listening out there.
Absolutely.
Well, there you go. I didn't plan to go on a sort of rant straight away and that, but it just led me there, so I went with it. That's fine. All right. So from here, let's talk about today's guest. I'm super excited to be starting the year with such a sort of positive and engaging and enchanting guest.
And being true to herself.
Very true. Yes, you'll see that in the chat. We did record the chat with our guest today ahead of time. So we are speaking with Dawn Buoy today. Dawn is an APPI Master Trainer. She is the owner of Body Rehab Studios, which is a physio and Pilates business based out of Brighton here in the UK. And I have known Dawn for a long time. Dawn worked for me in our Hampstead studio and then went off and had her own vision and sort of goals in mind, which I was delighted by because she was upfront with it. She was always honest, and she went with our blessing and has gone on to create an absolutely superb business and life for her and her family down there in Brighton. She's presented for us all over the world for many years and had a bit of a break while she was building her business, but is now back on the presenting scene for us. Fascinating chat with Dawn. So look, before we go too much into what Dawn's got to say, why don't we throw you over to the interview itself? We'll come back and have a chat post-interview, but let me hand you over to a fascinating chat with physiotherapist, Pilates instructor, APPI Master Trainer, Dawn Buoy. Oh, hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pilates 101. It's Glenn Withers here, one of the founders of APPI, and I am joined, as I have been of recent times, with Kristina, holding one of our master trainers here at APPI HQ. And today we have a very special guest. I'm very excited about our chat today. We are being joined by Dawn Buoy, one of the sort of longest standing colleagues and partners here at APPI Education. And Dawn, it is a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. Welcome.
Everyone, as I said, I'm naturally known for a slight potty mouth, so that's the only thing that's making me slightly anxious, but I will try to behave.
Yes, I'm sure you'll be fine. Appreciate the warning, though. Everyone can make their choices now.
My trigger warning, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Dawn, like we normally start by just finding out a little bit more about you. So why don't you give us that sort of couple of minute summary of sort of your background, how you got into physio, and how your sort of career started?
There's another thing about talking to you guys today. I always knew I wanted to be a physio from being really young, and I can't really remember where it came from. I was a swimmer when I was a kid, and I can remember people getting injured and we had a physio. And I remember thinking, oh, it must be really cool to look at the outside of a body where someone's got pain and know what's on the inside of that, and therefore what might be causing that. So I think it was a bit of that. And then also, if I think about it, my mum's mum, so my maternal grandma, she's paralyzed. She was paralyzed in a car accident. She actually hated all her physios. She was horrified that I was going to be a physio. But I think hanging out with her and seeing how she adapted the world and did so well, and she was pretty kick-ass, I think maybe that fed into it as well. But I went to quite an academic school, and they were really annoying because when I said I wanted to do physio, they basically suggested it was because I couldn't be bothered to try hard enough to do medicine, which really, I was like, my God, you've actually got someone who knows what they want to do. And I've never regretted not doing medicine. This is exactly what I wanted to. So I applied to King's because that was the most academic place at the time to do physio. So went to King's, qualified in 2000. And then at that time, they were qualifying more physios than there were jobs, probably. It was particularly bad at that time. And so took a job straight out of uni, worked in Canterbury to do my rotations because I knew I wanted to get into MSK, and I didn't want to start in London because in the London hospitals they had about 15 rotations, and I was like, oh my God, I could be going around for years and never. And it was about, I think I started doing some Pilates quite soon after I qualified, because I was always interested in MSK. It was when all the like Hyde, Hodges and Richardson stuff was coming out. We'd covered a bit of that in my final year at uni. So I was kind of aware of that. And then, yeah, sort of stayed in the NHS for about 6 years, went back to London, Adam Brooks in Cambridge, King's in London, and then started training with you guys. And then left to do my masters. So I've got my MACP masters, and I'd done your Pilates training at the same time. And then I'd met you on the courses, I think, at Hampstead. They were all there, weren't they?
Yep.
At that time, back in the day. And then, so I'd done all of that and then went away traveling and was meant to, I had a job to come back to privately to run a clinic for somebody, and then got really drunk one night. Oh no, that's what happened. Sorry, hang on, rewind. That's what always happens. But that specifically, no, what happened was, they phoned me and the clinic that they were going to open flooded, and it wasn't going to happen. And I went out drinking and broke my arm really badly, and then came home from traveling and didn't have a job. and you were advertising in Hampstead, Glenn. And I thought, I just won't mention that I've broken my arm, and I'll just rock up with it in plaster. And because I just thought, let's not make excuses before I get there. And having done your courses and wanting to go into private practice, I was like, that's the best place I've ever seen as a clinic that I've wanted to be part of. So it was all quite fortuitous. So because of the drinking and the broken arm and the flooded clinic, I ended up coming to work for you.
You did.
And I sold it. I was like, it'll be off in 2 weeks. It'll be fine. And actually, Pilates was quite good for that, I guess, because I could do less hands-on physio for a while, and you guys were kind enough to do more of the Pilates equipment stuff with me. So
yeah, my gosh, what a story. I got to be honest, I don't remember you turning up with a broken arm. See, I didn't even remember it so much.
Oh, but I was obviously very charming. I just hid it under the desk. I was like, I think my class was coming off in 2 weeks. So I was like, look, this is coming off in 2 weeks. Other people, you would probably anticipate someone would have to give you notice anyway. So I was like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, I must say, I do have very fond memories of our time working together at Hampstead. We had a great team back then, I must say. Really, really talented people, but we all had a good laugh, and there was always constant chatter in the studio and the staff room. So tell us about the sort of Pilates, how you got interested in Pilates. You mentioned there you were going through your masters, and you were looking at, obviously all the Hydes, Richardson stuff was around. Given you came from a swimming background, was there any of that type of exercise in your swimming back in the day, or how did Pilates come onto your radar?
Used to have those, and now someone's reinvented it and it's on Instagram. But do you remember those old school swimming benches that you used to lie on, and they had springs, which were really old school, but obviously looking back are a little bit like a reformer. And these days they sell them on Instagram with like the box and the bungee cords. I think I wasn't exercising as much at the time. I felt like when I got into what I think APPI does really well, and I still think it does really well, is I wanted a framework of something to be able to use as my rehab for people. And I think in physio, you would give this like a sheet of exercises, or you would give this or that. Whereas I was really drawn to it because I felt like there was more of a bigger structure, a bigger purpose. The way that the exercises are broken down into levels, there was clarity about where you would go. It brought in all the science into it. It felt like a complete package that I could use alongside my manual therapy stuff, and I still think that's why it's great today, because it brings together lots. Back in the day, it was all the anterior knee pain stuff when we were talking about glutes. It felt like it incorporated lots of the little bits that I'd done, shoulder stability, course, and it put it all together in like one big kind of package, really.
Yeah, agreed. Well, and I'm pleased that you said sort of, and it still does, because it's still the same thing, and you've been sort of out of the presenting picture for us for a little while, and you've come back in now, which is amazing. And so let's talk about that transition, if you like, because I do remember having you working at Hampstead for a number of years, and then that dreaded email you get from any staff member, especially a valued staff member, when they say, have you got time for a chat today? It's like, oh, here we go. All right. And you were really great. I must say, I still remember the chat, because you were like, look, I've really loved working here, and it's shown me what we can do. And I just want to be open and upfront. I've always wanted to go and open my own place. So that's what I want to do. And just that honesty. And we still, Kristina will know, it's one of our 5 core values in the business today, is that honesty. Just be honest and tell us your ambitions. And you did that brilliantly. And that must have been an interesting time for you and for a lot of people listening here. They've always maybe thought about that transition from working for somebody else to opening their own place or starting their own business. And that path is a very challenging path. It's a path that most people at some stage will look at. Not everyone takes the leap, and not everyone takes the leap and then makes a success of it like you have. So why don't you take us back to that time in terms of thinking about setting up body rehab studios, right back to, why, how, the name, the location, all that sort of stuff?
My parents ran their own business. That's what they did. They took calculated risks and they were successful because of it. So I think I came from a culture where I'd seen my family do that. I understood a little bit about running my own business and I had them to kind of ask advice on and stuff. I had moved to Brighton, which I love, and I loved you guys. I didn't love the 5:57 train too much, and the commute cut off, you know, the bit where you would get to do sport, and I'd be walking past the seaside at like in the dark to get the train, and I was like, oh, I don't know how much longer I could do that for. So once I knew I was going to be settled here, but I just started really small, and actually being a presenter for you guys, I like left you and then went, but can I keep presenting? Because that'd be really helpful for me, because actually the financially being able to do the presenting while the business was small allowed me to take that step. And I rented one room initially and it was just me. And then I rented 2 rooms in the same building and had somebody to help me, because as you know, with private practice, it's frustrating. Everybody wants you at the same time and you can't split yourself in half. Everybody wants the evenings and nobody really wants those kind of mid-afternoon school pickups up to uni. So then I took one other person, and then eventually I took a bigger leap and stayed where I am still now, which is 2 treatment rooms and a studio. And there's 8 of us that kind of cycle in and out of that space. And I think it's been helpful. I've been lucky enough that people want to come and work with me that bring their own specialty. Like we have Tom Goom that works with us, who's the running physio chap. So he's got his crew. I've got a girl who specializes in dance, so she kind of attracts her crew. So you kind of have this weird kind of family that all kind of attracts slightly different types of clients. And then I basically kind of worked my butt off to make friends with people. I went and hung out with a lot of the running groups. I had this random thing where, and it's awful promoting yourself, isn't it? I think as physios, we're not. I'm more of a salesperson maybe than some people, but promoting yourself is super awkward and uncomfortable. But I took some flyers into a running shop and started treating a guy that had shin splints, who then set up the Brighton Marathon and said, do you want to be part of it? And I still do the commentary for that now. It's now been bought out by London Marathon, and I still do the commentary for that now. I remember someone saying to me, for every 10 things that you put out there, maybe one of them you'll get something back from it. And just being optimistic and persevering and keeping going around and saying to people, oh, hi, by the way, not being, pushy about it, but just saying, I'm open. These are the hours that I work. These are the types of injuries that I can treat and stuff. And pushing it forwards that way. And now it's easier to promote because it's not just me, and it doesn't feel quite so, I don't know what the word is, egotistic. Writing your own bio on the website, massive cringe, isn't it? When you're like, I am really good at blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just cringe. It's cringe. And then it just takes that time to build up. And as you know, Glenn, with clinics, that you, for about 5 years, and I was having kids and stuff as well, but you feel like you're sort of pushing this massive rock up a hill. You're like, oh my God. And then eventually you sort of start to realize, we might be starting to roll down the other side here. Hang on a second. And, maybe I don't have to say yes to everybody and everything. And maybe I can, give that client to somebody else or whatever. And yeah, building up is hard, and then letting it go a bit is hard too, right? You get kind of, and then the presenting, there came a point where I have 2 kids. They were at an age where they just needed more help with everything. I was trying to run the clinic, and the presenting, I just had to take a step back from it. Just got, and you always say, Glenn, like family first. There just was a point where I was like, oh my God, I can't. It's sweet. It's not funny. But my youngest daughter's dyslexic. She's quite dyslexic. But my husband's also dyslexic, so her trying to help her with reading, I was like, this is not a thing. This is not going well. And my husband teaches at a good school. We had the opportunity for them to go there if they could pass the exam, if they were academic enough. And I was like, I need to be able to give them a bit of extra help that they need. So, but all of that's done now. They're fine. School's all sorted. They can read, so that's good. my little one, she still says to me, she's like, do you remember when I didn't recognize the word "the," mummy? I'm like, yes, I do. I really do. But we've got there. So it's all that other stuff as well, isn't it, with young family, where you're trying to just, help everybody and get things sorted.
Yeah, constant juggle, especially with so many things to try and keep in the air, right? So look, your story really is brilliant, and you gloss over a few things there, Dawn, because unlike myself, and Lisa and I often talk about this, if we had to do what we have done, but we were on our own in doing it, I'm not sure we actually would have got through those really tough times. And I think a lot of people, when they look at running a physio and Pilates center, they have such a small view of what it takes to actually make something successful. And as you've just highlighted there is a massive difference between renting a room and it going all really well, which effectively is you creating your own job, to actually building a business that can stand on its own 2 feet, so to speak, and you can then start to grow with this thing rather than be in it constantly. So going sort of back to that time, those early stages there, and you sort of touched on it about pushing a rock up a hill, and it been all consuming for a while. Can you look back and think of any specific lessons you learned early on, or specific successes you had early on, that just allowed you to get to sort of that crucial sort of 2-year phase where you really start to see things turning? The first 18 months to 2 years, for anyone contemplating it and listening to this, it's enormously valuable advice to hear from people like yourself that have done it. So, you started with a single room, you grew into 2 rooms, and then obviously you've grown from there with what sounds like an amazing team. But why don't you, if you can, take us back and just start to think about, if you were giving that advice to someone today, what are those main things maybe you learned early on?
Things that I learned is, I don't quite know how to, hopefully I can explain this. You need people on board that are individual, as in, if you have a consultant that works with you, that consultant sends you maybe 3 patients a week. That is a constant source of patients, basically, isn't it? Like, rather than trying to reach the individual all the time, there was a lady here who was very well respected that did exercise groups specifically for women, actually way before, and she did lots of stuff around the menopause and stuff. So by getting her on board, and she was funny, she was much better at business than I was at that point. And I was like, well, maybe we could offer you a discount. She's like, Dawn, you don't need to offer me a discount. If I tell people to come to you, they will come to you. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, those people that have, if you want to call it a tribe or so it was like, it was getting, the first time, I remember when I was working for you and you were always like, we must write back to the consultants, we must da. Like, those relationships are so valuable, right? Because they're the ones that are your bread and butter. They're always doing surgeries, they're always doing, so I think it was realizing, once you had a few of those people that are a wider source of clients, that was super valuable. Just getting myself out there with the marathon, actually you're presenting stuff, going out and giving free talks to people and being confident to do that. All of that stuff really went in my favor. It's just, it's putting yourself out there. And I remember sitting down and just writing a list, because we were new in Brighton. I hadn't worked in the NHS here, and I just literally making a list of everyone I knew, like actually just people I knew in Brighton, to go, oh, hi, I've opened my practice, this is what I do. There were some tenuous links to consultants that I kind of, pulled a few favors on. I mean, I wasn't pulling favors. I'm good at what I do, but it's just getting your foot in the door, isn't it, Glenn? It's like hard to build those relationships. So I think it was trying to think about a person that will then open the door to lots of people, rather than sometimes when we just do generic advertising, it doesn't have, you could spend a lot on generic advertising. And I think I did spend a lot on generic advertising. And then I was like, this isn't getting me anywhere. Like, people need to meet you. You go to a running club in person, or you you give us a talk in person at the marathon. They wanted me to give a talk to all the doctors on the MSK injuries, and I was like, oh God, I really don't want to do that. And then of course you do it, and then like, yeah, you've spoken to every doctor that's in this, you know what I mean? It's things like that where it's like the bigger picture stuff rather than that generic, oh, let's send out leaflets, let's send out flyers, for me. And I think when I opened, social media wasn't such a big deal. But I still think the majority of my business comes through recommendation, word of mouth. And that's my favorite recommendation, because I love my clients. And if they recommend someone to me, I know I'm going to like them. That the person that recommended me already taste tested me, right? Already knows what I'm like, has already recommended me. So there was a couple of people that had beef with me when I opened in Brighton, a couple of businesses. And I don't know, it's like, can I say this? It's a bit naughty. They've shut down now. They actually did. I won't say who they were.
Then yes, you can.
Then yes, I can. They started. They're just doing some dodgy stuff. Anyway, I knew they were saying that people were going there to see a physio, and their physio had left, so they weren't seeing a physio. They were seeing a sports therapist, which is actually illegal and awful. And I thought, you know what? Do I get involved in that or do I not? Like, because they tried to like elbow me out of place before, and I was like, you know what, Dawn, just do what you do well and don't worry about that crap.
Yeah.
And I think that is like, if you're good at what you do and you care about people and you give them your time and you listen to them, that's what then they recommend people, and that's how it grows. I think some of the fancier social media stuff, maybe it works better now, or yeah, but I've always found, just do what you do well with a good heart, and it will happen.
Yeah, very good advice, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, because over the years we've had some people say some very interesting stuff about us, and I've always been on the fact of, we just focus on what we can do, and we'll do it the very best we can. It's all we need to focus on. But you said something a little bit earlier that I do think is really interesting, and you've sort of backed it up with what you're saying there, in that when people are considering this leap from working for somebody else to setting up your own place, be it a physio place or a Pilates studio or a combination of both, that you said earlier, sort of put 10 things out there and maybe you get one back. And I think that's a really important message, to be honest, because a lot of people almost I don't know whether this comes across the right way, but some people can almost feel entitled that because they've started something that it should work, or they've seen what somebody else has done and seen it successful, having no idea what it took to get there, and think, all right, well, I'm going to do this. And then they sort of sit back and wait for it to come. And, we talk about this on the courses, they put a advert in a local newspaper, which has never really been effective for me. Whereas, if you can get a local journalist to maybe write a piece on you because you're doing something really innovative or really cool, and it's an actual editorial, then that's going to have a lot more sort of credence to it. And so, as sort of, if I take the physio angle of this, I think you're absolutely right that a lot of people that come from a clinical background, be it physios, chiros, doctors, sports rehab therapists, don't consider themselves a salesperson. Yet they open a business, and the only way that a business is going to succeed, if you can learn how to do sales, marketing, accounting, all the other things that as small business owners we have to do. So you're obviously, I say obviously, anyone who knows you will know this, but you're, a great person to have in a room. You're always sort of bubbly in the room. People enjoy experiences with you and enjoy conversations. And obviously you got amazing client feedback and reviews when you were working for us, and as you do as a presenter. So there's that sort of concept that you do have to embrace putting yourself out there. You do have to accept that if you want a business to grow, you are going to learn how to sell that business. Even though our business is healthcare, we do still need to sell it. And I talk to a lot of my staff about, going to visit consultants, and, it's not enough to go and say, hey, my name's Glenn, I'm really good, will you send patients to me? It doesn't work like that. So when you look back, and you've spoken about your connection with the marathon, and you put yourself out there and you did those public speaking events, I assume you did those just from a promotion point of view. A lot of people, now think that they should be paid just to get up and speak anywhere. And if you're going to build your own business, then, I'm sorry, you're going to have to find a way to pay yourself. What other things in terms of those initial consults with potential referral sources have you learned over the years?
Well, I had a couple of times where, like with the consultants, I was like, can I come on and watch surgery? Can I come and see what you do? Can I come in with a patient? I feel like if I can get in front of somebody, it's how you get in front of somebody. And it's funny now, and I do love myself. Obviously, most of them are not as gobby as I am, and I love them for that. But also, if it's me that does it all the time, that's who they want to see, because they've seen me talking, or they've seen me kind of. So I'm like, if guys, like, it's trying to encourage people within what they're comfortable with to sell themselves somehow that way. But it's hard, and a lot of people. But what I treat a lovely friend of mine, and he's a dentist. And he's opened his own practice, and I was like, so they're going to open their own business. I'm like, because I know what that means, and you know what that means. Like he comes in like, Jesus Christ, and I'm like, yeah, I know, yeah. That's every small business owner. Looks like this on the outside, and then on the inside, you're absolutely like, oh my God, like, like juggling like the swan or whatever, or the duck with your feet underwater, going like that. And it's hard because then you still have to walk in with a client and give them your full attention and be present for them and make it all about them. So yeah, and there was a point where I didn't know. I opened up a second studio, but by having two premises, this is boring, worked out, but good to know. It cut off my small business rates allowance. So then I had to pay rates on. I had a new premises. But then I had to pay rates on that one and my old premises. So I've just done myself for like an extra 35 grand a year or something without realizing that, like, oh my God. I mean, and so I took another room closer to the station because I thought that would work. And then I was like, oh God, actually now it's just a bigger hamster wheel, isn't it? It's also learning, where do I want to be where I can comfortably kind of happy place where I'm working hard, but I'm not at a point where that was a step too far. And I was like, no, actually, that extra 35, 40 grand that I've got to earn, that is a big hamster wheel. And that means not being able to take Wednesday afternoons off if I want to watch my kids play sport. That means, doing an extra Saturday clinic. To be successful when they're, to have two successful clinics by the time they're 17, 18 and then gone. I was a bit like, whoa, kind of also find your lane or your limit a little bit with it as well. Know where you sit and what's sustainable without having to absolutely, kill yourself. And I think just being me, in some ways, my teacher, so he works in a super secure environment, which helps us as a couple because there's one way that's super secure. But he has, and maybe it's a good thing, he doesn't know anything about probably what goes on in my head kind of business wise. It's quite hard to explain to somebody, and I think the NHS is a very big institution to work for, so to come out of that and then go private is it's a huge jump. But yeah, I made it through. It took me 17 years. 2009, 2008, 2009. So yeah, 16 years maybe.
Yeah. Well, good for you. And you've just touched on another thing that I think is a really, really important lesson. And I must say, it took me far too long to learn this lesson, but it is the lesson as a business owner that you don't have to say yes to everything, and not everything that's thrown your way actually is a good thing. And that takes quite a bit of time to learn. So you probably touched on it with the story you've just told us, but that concept of being comfortable enough in what you're doing, where you are and where you're going, to be able to critically analyze something and say yes or no based on a proper analysis of the opportunity.
So, or there's a thing in society where they're like, oh, you're doing wrong, you must get bigger. Do another thing, do this, do that, do that. And I was like, well, actually, but that doesn't make me like, why do I want to be a physio? I went to a business guy. One of my clients was training to be a business coach, and he said, can I do some sessions with you? And I was like, oh, the practice is doing quite well. I'm not really sure what I want to do. And he was like, okay, close your eyes. Pretend it's the day that you wake up and you're retiring that day. Just pretend that that's the day you're on. Where are you and what are you doing? And he was like, are you walking into like 6 practices that you're selling to like? And I was like, no, I'm in this house and we've done the extension, which we have done now. And I'm treating my favorite patients in the basement that day. The basement's nice. It's like a nice Pilates studio in a basement. It's not like a dingy basement. And I was like, and he was like, if that's where you want to be on the day that you retire, you're already kind of there. Like then why are you trying to? I was like, oh, I don't know. You're right. I like looking after my own patients. I have some incredible patients ranging from all sorts of things. I love being part of their lives and whatever it is they want to achieve or whatever. That's what makes me most happy. Not saying I've got, I don't know, the other stuff like, the car or the 4 clinics named after me. I was a bit like, oh, that's actually not where I want to end up. It's yeah.
Well, I mean, look, that's an enormous path to actually get there. So I'm super happy for you that you're there, because it's a difficult path for a lot of people to get to. And I think a really good lesson, I think, for people to take away from here, that, whatever is the next thing isn't always the right thing. Maybe take a stock, take a look, see where you are, and decide exactly what you want out of whatever it is you're doing, because there's a lot of risk for a small business owner, and there are times when you do need to take a step back and actually think about what's right for you, rather than maybe what's right for everyone else that's in the business. So let's move on to the Pilates side of this. You mentioned earlier your studio, Body Rehab Studios, correct? Yeah, and you've got a Pilates studio linked to the 2 rooms?
We've got, so I work on the drive and home, so we've got those nice big old like Regency buildings with a big bay window. So the old front room, and we used to have a client in his 90s, and he knew the family who owned the house when it was the house where I work, and he was like, we still got the fireplace. So the big front room is the studio. We have a reception room, and then we have 2 treatment rooms. But one of them's big enough to get a reformer, a chair in, and a physio bed in as well. So it means like practically, if we have classes on, we've got basically 2 Pilates spaces with equipment in, because a lot of our one-to-ones obviously use the equipment, otherwise, because it's the logistics all the time, isn't it, of juggling. And I don't have enough space, and I didn't want to take that step of having a purely reformer studio from a practical point of view. So how we do our equipment classes, we do them as circuits. We do it that way, so that we've still got the space in the middle that we can do mat on as well, so that we can use the space 2 ways. Yeah. I'm in Central Hove, which is a lovely place to be, but it's expensive, like floor, and especially now, like pre-COVID and all of that. Back in the day, it wasn't as much, but business, all of that stuff is a lot. So yeah, so I have that studio that can be mat or equipment, 1 bigger treatment room, so we can do Pilates in there, and then a smaller treatment room at the back, and then obviously an office manager, and then 8 of us that rotate in and out.
Awesome. So tell us about the studio. What equipment do you have in the studio? And tell us about how you utilize that in terms of your studio sessions. Is it 1 to 3, 1 to 4? How do you sort of deliver that service?
We don't do smaller group sessions. We've never really nailed that. I don't really know why. We tried. So we actually now only do either 1-to-1 or groups of 6 or 7.
Okay, yeah.
And the groups of 6 or 7 are either mat or equipment. And then for the equipment, we've got 2 reformers, 2 chairs, the wall bars, the ladder barrel, and then they kind of move around. Our equipment, we've tailored more to more like athletic Pilates. So that's probably our kind of higher level clients. So they do it like 2 minutes on and then kind of rotate round. So I think our equipment Pilates classes are probably for people who we're trying to hang on, like, as in, like, they know they should do Pilates, but it needs to be fun enough that they don't just want to come to a mat class, with all due respect to the mat class. You know what I mean? That kind of, we treat a lot of runners, a lot of triathletes, kind of quite a lot of, when I say older people, they're my age, basically my age now, like 50s, 60s, coming into retirement. With the people play a lot of tennis around here. It was kind of that active older person. And I think there's been a massive move towards, before I felt like I had to sell the fact that maybe we need to think about Pilates a bit more to keep you in shape as you go older to be able to play tennis. Because I feel like these days many more people walk through the door going, I'd like to do one-to-one Pilates because I play tennis. I'm like, oh, brilliant. Okay, cool. Yeah. They're like, people come in and off for that now a bit more, I think. So that's how it works. And then not all of us teach Pilates. We have our sort of pure physio. So then as a business owner, it's that thing of like, you don't want to put too many classes on, because then if a staff member is away, or it's just that constant, like, who have I got to cover, or all of that stuff.
Very good, very good. So you have carved out a little bit of a niche from a clientele point of view. That's sort of what I'm hearing from you. And then you're delivering that service that sort of obviously fits that niche. You're obviously delivering a very high quality service, because you mentioned earlier that your greatest referral sources are word of mouth and direct referral, rather than external advertising, social media, etc. So as you sort of project forward and you start looking at how does this progress? Does it stay where it is because you're close to capacity anyway, and it's a case of continuing to deliver the service quality to make sure you maintain that? Or is there anything else on the horizon that that you're thinking about? And I ask it because you touched on earlier, you said you don't have the space for a reformer studio. We know that reformer group classes is the fastest growing part of the Pilates industry right at this minute. What are you thinking in relation to the Pilates side of your business? Are you thinking, we got that nailed, we're happy? You got any other thoughts?
So in COVID, so Brighton's an hour on the train to London. Well, a bit longer, because I used to do it, and it takes a bit longer. Since COVID, where people have been in London less, we've had loads of down from London's move to Brighton, because they don't need to be in London as much. And because of that, we've had loads of those reformer studios kind of pop up everywhere. And in my mind, for me, it's made me realize that I want to do that less. I feel like I'm going to let them do that, and we'll do and people go, but you guys really know what you're talking about. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I would rather do one-to-one. I don't know about those Pilates. I think when you've got lots of people on reformers all at once, I think it would work better if there was 2 people teaching those classes, maybe, or smaller classes. I think when you've got lots of people walking in who may not have done Pilates before, and there's one person instructing and no one to help with hands-on, I don't know how comfortable I am with that for some of our clients who want a bit more. So I feel like, excuse me, I'm gonna let them do that bit, and then we'll just stick with us being specialized, and because that's our niche. And I think that other slice of the pie is being taken in a different kind of way, and I don't think I want to try and compete with. I don't think I want to generalize myself. If anything, it makes me want to almost pull back the other way and go, right, we're only doing one-to-one then, and we'll do it like really like specific to the person in front of me. I know exactly what you need. I know everything about you. It tempts me more to go back to our roots of really knowing people and really, So no, I think the business will only ever be as big as it is now. I think I'd like to do more things with my brain. So actually what I'd probably like is to keep the business as it is. Maybe not take on too many more new patients myself, let the rest of the crew deal with all of that. And then I think I've just done my prescribing course, which I love. That was really good for my brain. I'm going to do a couple of lectures at the uni next year. that for me, that I'm not driven to push the business another step forwards. I want to do less of that and more like what makes my brain. I feel like I've got extra brain now because the girls are older. I feel like I'm more interested in learning, or I don't know. I think the business is just Goldilocks, just right, just good. Yeah, kind of leave it.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, that's
bit more presenting for APPI as well, Dawn. A bit more presenting for us. Get your brain going.
Just see what happened. So I had 2 clients come through who said they wanted to be Pilates instructors, and they said, "Would you recommend anywhere?" I was like, "Nah, I can't really think of anywhere, to be honest." You could do APPI. No, of course. I was like, "Definitely do APPI." So those 2 went through it, and as part of that, I started teaching them again. They were like, "Dawn, will you explain this to me? Will you talk to me about this?" And they were like, and I was like, "Yeah, no, I used to teach this all the time." And then I realized how much I like teaching other people to do that. And then we were watching Race Across the World. I don't know if you watched that with your kids. Anyway, watching Race Across the World, and they're in Brazil, and I was like, I was in Sao Paulo once, so I was teaching Pilates over there. I sort of sat on the sofa going, why am I not doing that anymore? Like, what? Hang on. So, it was kind of a combination of those 2 things, really. So, they're called Sandra and Anita. I don't think Sandra's done her exam yet, but Anita has done her exam and passed with very high mark. I made sure. I was like, come on, Anita, got this. So yeah, I kind of accidentally dipped my toe back into it with those guys. And I can be away from the clinic a bit more now. I can be away from my family a bit more now. So yeah, all the international stuff. So I like messaged you guys and I was like, oh, hi.
Yeah.
Can I hang out with you guys again?
Yes, which was a delight, I must say, to get that back from you. You are one of our most amazing and most popular presenters. So tell us about the presenting part. I can't remember off the top of my head. Obviously, you went to Brazil. Did we send you to America as well? Where have you been?
I don't think I went to America. I went to Brazil, Turkey, Ireland. I was trying to think before I came on here. I don't think I did America.
Okay.
I think I had I would have said no to America because at one point I had a green card and then I kind of messed it up. So I was a bit like, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'll just leave that alone. But no, I loved it. It was.
Yeah, your timing is perfect, to be honest, on that side, because the international side of what we're doing is just going a bit crazy right now. So we just need.
Well, I am going to be hunting down Sandra and Anita and saying thank you because. So I don't know if you remember this, Dawn. So I actually assisted you on one of my first courses, and I went back in my emails and I went all the way back, and I've got an email from you from 2011 where we're talking about the teaser together, and like we'd already agreed in a Matwork 1 like who was going to teach what, and in it was like we had like the traditional workshop, and we were having like a little argument about who was going to teach teaser 2. So we're like, well, you can do it, and I was like, I don't know if I'm confident enough to teach that, and you were like, no, you'll be fine, you can do teaser 2, and I was like, oh god, I remember
2011.
I remember being in my living room like practicing it, thinking, because I hadn't met you, I'd only seen your picture on the wall. And then okay, so Dawn, 12 years ago, I still do a little bit like a ginormous girl crush on you. So when I was telling my husband, oh, I've got a podcast today with Glenn and Dawn, and he said, my husband said, is that the woman that you were partly in love with? And I said, yes. That was this
so
morning.
Nice. This is so nice. Glenn never says any stuff like this. I'm so glad you're here.
No. And that is it. And then when I took on the international relations manager role, I've seen now, a few months ago, and it's getting really big, and we're doing really amazing things, and it's really interesting, really exciting. And 2 of my kind of inspirational master trainers, as it was you and Leslie Abrahams, I kind of come in, it's like, oh, I think they kind of want to come back in again. And I'm just like, this is just the best timing ever. Yeah. Like, just a little email to you, email to Leslie, and yeah, getting you guys booked onto doing some of the international stuff for me is just, oh, it's so exciting. It's just so exciting.
I'm super excited. I think I always the reason I kept teaching with you guys for as kind of as long as because I loved it. Like I loved it. Like I loved being teaching at the weekends. I love it. It was just by the Wednesday of the following week, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I mean, but I'd just be so excited all weekend. I never disliked teaching. I absolutely loved it. But I just get so excited about it, and then try and come back and do a full week's work and kids and everything. I'd be like absolutely floored by the following weekend. I just couldn't do everything. But no, I missed it. I still love teaching now, and I'd love to do more teaching in lots of different ways. I'm very sort of drawn to doing that. But I just remember when I taught in Brazil, I had to teach via a translator, and there was 2 translators, and one was really cool. Well, I say really cool as in I translated my jokes, and the other one did not. So I'd be like, blah, 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 and I think I'd say something really funny, and I'd like look at him to translate, and he'd just be like,
yeah,
and he'd say nothing. It was just nothing. I was like, oh my God, it's like literally a fun sponge. She's literally sucking the fun out of this entire situation. So I'm so used to that rapport, like having to, because it's Portuguese, right? Which I can't even start to imagine. But yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, working via translators, I was definitely like, okay, got to kind of, yeah.
Yeah, it is a challenge. It is a challenge. I have many times out in Brazil where I was talking about multifidus activation, and then I'd said one sentence and the translator spoke for 5 minutes and everyone laughed. And I was like, no idea what he said.
I can remember in Brazil as well teaching them, you know, when I think it's probably so basic lumbopelvic dissociation, like trying to keep your thoracic spine. And in England, everyone struggles with that. You're like on a gym ball, like in Brazil, they're like, what are you talking about? Because they all samba. So they're all just like, they like dissociate like every part of themselves. I was like, by the time it came to the second and third course, I was like, got to that page, I was like, that isn't a thing. You guys should do that. So I was just like, the first time I took ages to explain it, and they were just like, I was like, oh yeah, that you can all do that. And I remember having to go in England, that's okay, yeah, we don't do that, but that's, yeah, you guys,
no one moves, nobody moves like that.
No hips move like that. Yeah.
Well, look, Dawn, it's been a pleasure reconnecting with you and having this chat with you. Thank you very much for giving us your time today. I'd just like to close with a few standard questions that we ask everyone that we speak to. So thinking about Pilates, it can be anything, mat, apparatus, whatever it is. What would you say is your most favorite Pilates exercise?
If there was one thing I could only teach people for the rest of my life ever, and it's a bit of a mega mashup of all my favorite things, some of our Pilates, we get stuck in the straight line, right? So we get stuck there. So it would have to be rotary stability stuff that anyone who's in the gym, they're never doing it. Anyone who's not exercising, they're never doing it. If I would do like a modified like side plank with a clam.
Okay.
You get a bit of shoulder stability. I feel like I'm going to do it on the sofa now. Yeah. Shoulder stability, bum off the floor, clam, and then a bit of side kicky series like that. Just give that to everybody, anyone ever. Gives you a little bit of everything. That would be my one go-to for everyone in the world ever.
Yeah, good call. I remember you doing that in your running DVD or something back in the day when we used to do DVDs. Yeah. All right, let's talk more from a studio setup point of view. You've set up a successful business both on the physio and the Pilates side. But if you were going to do it again today and you could only get 2 pieces of Pilates apparatus, what would you go for?
I would get actually I would get one reformer.
Yeah.
Because I feel like for your Pilates one-to-one clients, it's the one thing that they will kind of pay for. I don't mean that weird, but you need the reformer is so good. You can do everything. If you don't have a lot of money and you're setting up, I would get one reformer, and I would actually get 8 foam rollers, because there's nothing you cannot do on they're super cheap. You can do everything on there. I also think I was thinking the other day, maybe we should put this on marketing. You know, when women and men, let's just say women and men spend loads of money on their face as they get older, or like they get this or whatever. If your posture is shit, excuse my language, and you look like, and you've got the posture of Mr. Burns, it doesn't matter what your face looks like. I'm like, go get yourself a foam roller. You stand up a little bit straighter. You know, like you guys are both sat up straight.
Yeah,
now.
I know, I'm just like,
Oh my God. But do you know what I mean? You see these people when they're like this shape, and you're like, you could have just got a foam roller, love, like 10 years ago, and saved all that money on clothes and I don't know. But genuinely, I feel like if I could run foam roller classes for the rest of my life and be happy. And there's a lot of the reformer stuff you can take off and put on a foam roller.
There is. That's awesome. That is the first time we've had that answer. Pretty much everyone goes for the reformer, but we haven't had anyone go for foam rollers. So I love that insight. That's excellent. All right. Well, look, as I said, been a pleasure. Those of you listening to this are fortunate enough to get Dawn on one of our courses. You've hit the jackpot there. So it's a delight to have you back presenting for us. Congratulations on the place in life you are more than anything, because it's a lot of work and a hard road to get to that sweet spot that you've described. So I'm super happy for you and for your family that you're in there. It's a great place to be. So well done on that. Lastly, where can people find out more about you? Websites, anything else that you want to tell us about?
Body rehab in Hove. You guys listening can come and see me. Generally, I don't want any more friends now. I've got to that stage in life where I'm like, even new patients, sometimes I'm a bit like, really? But anyone listening to this will be lovely. So you're very welcome to come and find us in Hove. And yeah, find out. I'm teaching in Kuala Lumpur. You could come there. Might be a bit far. But I'm also doing some of your one-day courses next year. I'm doing some cardio reformer day in June. I'm doing about 10 days in the UK scattered around for you guys.
The cardio reformer course is really cool. We just finished filming it the other week. It's a really cool program.
And I did some of your APPI TVs, I think, up on there. On your, is it going to be called APPI TV? Is it going to be called something new?
No, it's APPI TV. Yep.
Yeah, TV. I'm on there. But yeah, and come down if you're in Brighton or Hove. We're not running any courses down here at the moment, but if that changes, I'll let you guys know. But generally, up and around in London, yeah, back in the game, keen, excited. I'm so excited on my first course. Everyone's going to be like, "Oh my God, who is this woman?"
Well, you'll love Malaysia. They're awesome out there, and they're doing a really great job. So it's going to be amazing to have you out there. But look, once again, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your story and your experiences and your learning with all of our listeners as well. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you in person maybe sometime next year.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dawn.
Okay, welcome back. Well, that was a fascinating chat. I mean, what a delightful person, right? What were your views?
Well, as you could tell from the interview, I may or may not have a slight fangirl crush on Dawn. And I have had it since I met her 14 years ago now, I think it was. I think she's fantastic. She's really inspirational. She's such a hard worker. She's so knowledgeable and she's fun. She just brings a lot of joy to discussion, to Pilates, anywhere she goes, really. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, she is. She's a great person. She just brings that sort of energy and enthusiasm. And I think what I found really enjoyable and / refreshing in a way is her just complete honesty when you talk to her.
Yeah.
She's just very open. She's very honest about, her views, her thoughts, what worked, what didn't work. I thought that was a really sort of interesting way to see as a professional how far Dawn has come, and all those lessons getting to that end sort of message that she left us with there when she was talking about knowing when enough is enough and knowing when, I'm happy. I'm happy here.
Yeah.
I don't have to keep chasing. I don't have to look at the next thing or get bigger or better and those things that a lot of us are always chasing. She seemed so content with where she was, what she's achieved, and I'm sure that comes through when she's working with her clients in her centers.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I can imagine she's just probably one of those therapists, whichever modality people are going to see her for physiotherapy, for equipment, Pilates, you go in probably to have your session, but also just to kind of imbibe some of her positivity. And when you said that she's honest, I think that's a lovely way to describe her, but also it's a positive word. I think everyone would quite like people to say about them. But you can't always get that across, even if you are being honest. But she's just so open. Yeah, it was really lovely.
Yeah, very much. Well, Dawn, look, thank you very much for your time again. It was a delight to speak to you too. All of you listeners out there, I hope you've enjoyed Dawn's story, and I hope that this is a nice, positive, engaging, entertaining way for you to start 2025 with us. We've got a packed schedule of podcasts planned for this year. We're going to speak to some of our international guests. We're going to speak to some big names in the industry and just try to continue to bring, I guess, the content, the questions, the controversy that you might be interested in as we go through the year. So please, as I often say here, do communicate in with us if there's particular people that you guys want us to speak to. If you want to recommend somebody, there might be a really cool book, there might be a different podcast, there might be a inspirational person in the industry that you want us to chat to. So do send those requests in, send them into hello@appihealthgroup.com. If you're wanting any more information about us, about our courses or what we have to offer you guys, jump on the website on appihealthgroup.com and you'll find everything there. Kristina, I will speak to you again in next month's episode. Of course, we work together, so I'll speak to you before then. But for the purposes of this recording, I will speak to you in a month's time as well. And to all of you out there, bye for now. Keep practicing, and we will speak to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Bye.